Yeah, it's
It's,
recording.
it's recording. All right. Here we are on The Blind Man in Black. And I'm here with Sefakor Grateful-Miranda Komabu. Is that correct? I meant to ask you that. Has your name changed? Is it still the same?
It's the same, but you didn't add my doctorate. I'm a doctor now. You forgot
Yes,
that.
PhD. Yes, I am so sorry. So it's Sefakor Grateful-Miranda Komabu,
Pomeyie.
PhD.
Pomeyie, yeah.
Say that again.
Pomeyie, my last name is a compound name, Komabu-Pomeyie. Yeah.
Okay, so it's changed.
No, it's never. It's only that the Pomeyie is not on Facebook. It's not changed. That is my last name in everything, Komabu-Pomeyie.
Okay. Just checking.
Yeah.
So, just to give a little background to everybody, Sefakor and I met at the SIT Graduate Institute in 2011, and I was studying peace building and conflict transformation. Now, I feel like you were studying sustainable development, but you may have been studying intercultural leadership and management at first. Did you change your major?
No, it was sustainable development, but my major was policy analysis and advocacy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, so Sefakor is a disability advocate, a professor, and we're going to learn a lot more. And I'm so excited to have you here. It's been, I think, the last time we were in the same room is maybe 8 years ago. Does that seem right?
It is. It is. Yeah. Those days when you would sit on the ground on my in my room on the floor, and we would just be chatting and discussing pressing issues affecting us. I remember very well. It's 8 years.
Yeah, the reason I asked you to be on this podcast is because I, every time I was near you, I always felt immense joy. You have a wonderful sense of humor. I can't see it anymore, but you have a beautiful smile, and you just radiate love, compassion, and empathy, and kindness, and just hope in every way. And I want everyone to experience what I experience just being in your presence, because you are an immensely beautiful, compassionate, empathetic, loving human being. And I'm so grateful that we have met in this lifetime. And so let's kind of how are you holding together through COVID-19 and everything else?
Thank you so much, Brian. Thank you so much. You remember how I call you Brian?
Yeah, yes, I do. You know what? It was funny because when I first met you, I could not hear your name, and I have a hearing loss too, and I don't talk about it much because it just, it's but I do.
Yeah.
I remember Rachel Cohen, she would say Sefako.
Yes.
And I would be like, and I remember seeing the spelling of your name, and it was spelled out Sefakor and it always sounded like the R was missing when she says, she goes Sefako. And I was like, what? I'm not, am I mispronouncing it? And I was always like, I don't understand what, so and then I ended up, you remember what I ended up doing. I just go Sefako.
Yeah, then I would say Brian.
And I did it with the accent. And I remember one time what you said, I said, Sefako. And you said, you remember what you said when I pronounced your name?
I think, yeah, maybe I thought you just pronounce it just like my Ewe language. You just spoke my language, right?
Well, I think I remember specifically that you said that I sounded like your mother.
Exactly. Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, wow. But
yeah, let's go back to the question you were actually asking me. How am I keeping up in this COVID? I think it's It's not easy. That is the reality on the ground. It's basically not easy to survive, yeah, in this era of COVID, and everything is so much confusing and nothing seems to be moving forward. But as much as you know me, I always have something to laugh or smile at. Yes. I don't dwell on the negative piece of it. I don't dwell on the things that everybody looks at and frowns at. That is where I smile. So basically, I've been in the room for some time now, and I have taken up some projects, like keeping myself busy. I'm trying to write a book about myself, a memoir, which is something that I just thought about from February, because I was thinking that could keep me busy. So in
Mhm.
every day, like every single day, I plan to write at least some 500 to 1,000 or 2,000 words, like just to keep me busy doing something, like focusing on it. Because after PhD, that you are yearning to enter the job market to look for job and to function, then all of a sudden this COVID just struck. So I have been busy working on so many things at the same time, presenting here and there. uh, God be so good, I got hooked up with Vermont Center for Independent Living, VCIL for short. Been busy with them also as the independent living coordinator. So I have been working around everything around disability all these times. I've been super busy, and I can assure you that I'm not so much stressed. And as you know, about me singing and making everything so much easy for me with my Christian backgrounds, or holding on to my Christian values, and making sure that I get something positive from the negative around me. So I would say that life has been good, not the best that I want, but I have been working around every bit of it to make it work out for me. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Let's we'll get into talking about the Vermont Center for Independent Living, but and we'll kind of readdress COVID, because I want to talk about that, because we're dealing with some COVID related disability issues here
Mm.
as well. And so let's go back to the beginning. Let's talk about where you're from, and your roots, and what it was like growing up in Ghana.
Wow, you're really diving into me. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I want to dive. Let's go.
Okay, so I'm the firstborn of three, and being a physically disabled, as I call myself, I think it got to a point. I just realized I have to own my disability and be proud of it, because it's part of my identity. So I got polio at the age of 8, and that is how come I became a person with disability. And from my younger age, I was struggling with the fact that I mean, everything around me changed, because the culture in my tribe, or where I'm coming from, it's very much negative towards people with disability. Not all the cultures, but issues about disability is just not a positive issue, because if you should have a child with any kind of disability, that child will not find a place in the family, because they look at you as a cursed object, or in other words, you have brought curse to the family. And I think that exactly was what happened to me. Even though I was a happy child, I was the one who brought that joy to my parents, because they were looking for a baby girl to be their first child. When you get married, so yeah, so fresh, and you have those questions or those targets to hit. And here I popped out to be the baby girl. And both parents loved me so much. But all of a sudden, I had fever. It wasn't like I was born with it. So it was a story to me, but I experienced it myself alongside with my mom. I went to school and came back and then had fever. Mom sent me to hospital and all those stuff. And at the end of the day, I'm paralyzed. I'm paralyzed, and it was this polio that I had. At that time, the polio vaccine was around, but it wasn't working because the government in power was hoarding all the medicines, so or the vaccines. So even
What
though
year
I
was
got
that?
vaccine, the polio vaccine,
But what
that was
year?
the year. So that was between in the 70s. So the first, yeah. So even though I had it in my childhood, it didn't work for me. So it actually affected me at the end of some years after. So that's why I could walk, I could jump, and I did everything. But at the age of 8, that was the last end of me. But the fact that I was a happy child that time for both parents, it got to a point that I was the worst object. Let me use the object for myself. The worst object my dad could to think about, because I could remember one significant day, people were coming to us, and my dad was a policeman, and uh, we were in the barracks, so he couldn't contain it. Like people were coming, and he was like, "Pack that thing, back that thing," and I was lying down on the floor, and he was actually authorizing my mom to pack me. That was me, like pack me, send her to the room, said like give me the order that people are coming. So in that case, like you could see that I became so much an awkward object for him, because every word he would use describing me was a curse thing. Like at the end of the day, to cut a long story short, he had to just leave the scene. He left, and he wrote a letter on the table for my mom that I can't stand with this thing anymore, and that this thing was me, and it's me now. So my dad actually left the scene. I actually say he's a coward, or he was a coward, because he couldn't withstand the pressure and the stigma of having a child with disability and be a big person, or let me say, like the society looks at you like you are not part of the community anymore because you have a child of disability. So he left. Nobody knew where he went. And yeah, after so many years, after 20 years, and I had to look for him because I was going to get married and have a blessing from my father, which is another cultural demand on me. Even though he didn't look after me, I have to bring him on board because I needed that blessing from a father. You know, even though my mom got wedded by another man, the fact that he was alive, it was still a demand that no, my stepdad couldn't hand me over to my husband, because it is something that it's cultural, and I have to do it. So that's another story altogether. But it was a hard nut to crack when I was young, to be a person with disability and to be catered for by only one parent. Oh my God, by only my mom. I still feel that I owe my mom, because I lost my mom 2 years ago, which is something that I always think about, that woman, my mom, never ate the fruit of her labor. Because to me, all the things, that the hardships that we went together, I really want to see my mom one day, I mean, smiling for the fact that this is the case object who is a doctor now. Because I really remember the day that she called me, and she showed me on WhatsApp. We have WhatsApp, we communicate every day. Those time, like I was here, I was cooking. We used to cook together on Saturdays. So I was cooking with my mom, and she ran to the room. She's like, "Sefakor, let me show you this thing. Let me show you, this is something that I'm doing. I can't hide it anymore." And she went and brought out the kente cloth that we have as a ceremonial cloth. It's a traditional cloth. We don't use it always. Occasionally we use it for best moments. and she went and brought out one that, and it was pure white. And she was like, look at this, look at the dress I have now, look at this. And she showed me all the things around there, that this is the new slit and kaba. That's the type of dress we have in Ghana. And she's like, this is what I will wear when you finish your PhD and you call me that I'm going to graduate. This is what I will wear that day for your graduation.
Ah,
Oh yes, that was my mom. That
ah,
I always remember those chats when people ask me about my beginning. I'm like, yes, you can't hear about my beginning without knowing who that woman was, because all that she wanted me to know is to know that I can be who I want to be if I go to school. Yes, she gave me two things, which I'm actually exploring around now in my book, because traditionally, I wouldn't be seen, I wouldn't be heard, like in terms of disability, but my mom used very spiritual tactics. That is why wherever I am, I never lose or wait for anybody to direct me how I have to project myself, because she used two things in my life. One, she made me aware that I am fearfully and wonderfully created by God, that I'm also an image of God. Yes, so if somebody sees me crooked or paralyzed or whatever term they will use for me, I should just have it in mind that I am blessed to be among the living. I am blessed. I'm a child of God. And even though the traditions or things around tells you that you are cursed, you are not valuable, I am telling you that you are so valuable. You are the best thing in the world. And every day she made me aware that for you to grow up to become who you want to be, you just need to hold on to that God who made you. And the second thing is you make sure that you go to school. Because when you go to school and you add value to yourself, nobody can look down upon you, because when you have your education, you can be who you want to be. Any work you want to do, you can do it, because people will no more look at your disability, but they will look at your profession. They will look at your your positive side. And that was the thing which was always hitting me back and forth when I'm going back and forth and struggling. I still remember that I can do this because of God who strengthened me, and I am going to make it because this is the only channel. And you know what? She always gives me a mirror to see myself in. Every morning at dawn, when in our culture, when you are called to order, let me use that word, like your parents tap on you on the bed and say, wake up, let's have this discussion. Then you have to be very attentive. You have to be very sure that you never forget anything discussed during that moment. That is how it is. So those were the days my mom would call me at dawn, give me the mirror and look at yourself. And she will be like, look at yourself. You are so beautiful. You are
mm.
super beautiful. And you can see the image of God in you. And it's left for you to be able to go to school and make sure that you add that educational value to yourself. And that is how my younger ages have really um, what's the word, revolutionized, or have metamorphosized up to now, because it's a changing process for me. I went through a whole lot of things, but those two things keep me going. Those two things, like I always remember that, yes, I am a person with disability, but I can make it through God who strengthens me, and I can make it with my educational background.
Can you say that last part one more time, please?
I said those two things keep me moving forward, because I know I can make it because I'm a child of God, or He made me so fearfully and wonderfully. And I can make it if I add the educational value to myself. And here I am today, holding on to those values.
I just want to say, you know, I really see the spirit of your mother. I can hear it in your voice, and it's beautiful.
Thank you.
And I'd also like to say I'm deeply sorry for your loss. I did not know that she had passed away,
Yeah.
and Um, I'm, yeah, that I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it's one of those steps that we normally take. Everybody will go. Yeah, and it's because she prepared me very well before she left. I still believe that I will see her. That's my belief also, that she's just not here. But yeah, I still feel that mom is always at my back, like
Mm.
keeping, yeah. So
So what was it like growing up? I mean, I know it sounds like you had your mother was an amazing support system for you, but
mhm.
how was it interacting with other community members that, still saw disability as a stigma, as a burden, or how did you deal with that?
I would say it wasn't easy. Even I would say it wasn't. It's still not easy. If you're a person with disability in our culture, it's still not easy. The stigma is too much, and it's still there. The only thing now, it's modernized. The only thing now is we are aware of the fact that human rights is working, and there are certain things that you won't do openly, but I mean, it's a hidden secret, kind of. So it's just not really easy. For instance, for a person with any type of disability you can't find your way through the system. You can't just easily find your way to have access to things. Let me say, for instance, um, our educational system. It's so hard for a child with any type of disability to survive in Ghana without any struggle. You have to be hardened. You have to, at a point, you just need to have those type of training from home, the hard piece of it that you are going to suffer. I mean, parents will prepare, some parents who actually know that they want their children to be very much somebody in the future. They prepare their children both positively and negatively to let them know what is outside there for them to survive it. For instance, when you are going to school, for instance, I remember there were times that mommy would talk to me and tell me that you can't go to that school and expect to go to toilets. That is one thing. So a bigger piece of me was I was always having a container around, I mean, with me. So in terms of going to pee, I always had a container with me at my back. And that was something that people who I went to school with in my primary to elementary level, they know me. Those I will pee in the classroom, like basically in the classroom and then in the pee container, and then somebody has to what, pour it out or throw it out for me. That was something that was not how do I call it? Anything normal. Let me use the word normal because nobody does that. But that is how far I could go because I have a courage that I can do it. There are some of these children with disabilities, they can't gather that type of courage to project themselves to that end. And that is how inaccessible our school system is. It's just that the school doesn't have room for me because the toilet is not accessible. That was a typical thing that I went through from childhood to the end of, I mean, wherever I find myself in the educational system. So I would say that life within the Ghanaian setting for a child with disability, it's so difficult. So for that child to survive, you have to be very much uh, extremely ready to suffer and to project yourself that you can do anything that suppresses you to really penetrate through the system. You can't go easy way. You must be, you must have a backup, like, and the backup should be the parent. So, but if it happens that your parent or your family also feel like what my father felt, then that means you are not going to be seen or even heard, because I still work with some of them uh, along the line because of my organization, that some of them are hidden. They are put, I mean, now they are just put, dressed up nicely, but they are put in the house or in the rooms and people cannot see them or people cannot interact with them or they can't come out just because they have a disability.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that they can't throw them away into any evil forest as it was happening, now there is that's why I said it is modernized, like the segregation or the stigma is now in a different form, because nobody can kill the child anymore, but you don't have a space. You can't be present in your family. So if your family really finds you to be an odd object, then that is it. And thank God some people are seeing us, or those of us who have come out of that shadow, we are trying to project ourselves positively. So some people are really learning a lot from us and trying to help their children. So things are really changing now, but there is a lot to be done. We need to do a lot about how these people with disabilities or persons with disabilities are catered for and are included in all things that we do. So policy-wise, if I should think about aligning policy to practices in Ghana, we are far, far behind. We are so good. We are very good at ratifying conventions, writing policies, laws here and there. I mean, to be abreast with time, especially to make sure that we check those boxes and report to UN that we have done this and this as part of government policies. Ghana is far, far ahead. But when you go on the ground for, to check the things about children or people with disabilities on the grassroots level, there is a huge gap between the policy and the practices on the ground. That is how difficult it is for children with disabilities in Ghana.
So has the mantra that we use here, nothing about us without us, has that been kind of echoed there?
Yeah. Basically, that is what we are working with. And that is one thing that some of us who are advocates, we project a lot, that you can't plan anything without us. You can't talk about, let's say, inclusive healthcare now without really bringing people with disabilities around the discussion table. Yeah, because we know that deaf people among us go to the same hospital and they have no interpreter, or they have nobody to let them know, or the doctors know what they are going through. And we had so many problems, or we had so many events, like people were having diarrhea, they were giving diarrhea medicine and they drank and they ran to death. People went to hospital, they had issues with cesarean sections and over bleeding, but because of lack of communication, things went so bad. But even as we are trying to say, we are very much inclined with this policy and this and that, practically, we are not connecting with the people who are supposed to be around the table and tell their stories and make sure that the way they have to be catered for are heard by the policymakers. So yeah, nothing about us without us is still what we are holding on to in Ghana as well. We are always shouting that they should include us. I don't know whether you have been watching currently our campaign. We are about to vote in December this year, and we are projecting a campaign that the disability vote, the power of disability vote, something like this. The message we are sending across is, you can never win this vote if you don't involve people with disabilities around a discussion table. If you don't include us and engage with us fully, because we want to be included fully, we want to participate fully. So if you don't include and engage us, you are likely to lose some massive votes, because we form this year, the voters from 3.1% of the voters, not the whole population, but just the voters. So you can imagine, and we are carrying this message across, that nothing about us without us. Yes, you can't have this election without people with disabilities on board with you. Yeah.
I want to go back a little bit, because I feel like I missed something, or I didn't hear it. But you mentioned that you had to ask your father's blessing for marriage. How did that go? What happened?
I like that. So culturally, in our context, we pay dowry. The
Hmm.
man, the man will pay dowry to the woman's family. This is a custom that tells us that you are valued by the man who is asking your hand in marriage. And in other words, the list or the content of the dowry covers some items that some of them are for daddy and some of them are for mommy. It's just a way of appreciating or thanking them that they have taken care of you as a woman from baby till you grow up, and that man has fallen in love with you. So it's a way of appreciation. So our dowry actually differs from region to region or culture to culture. And some people will give cow when you go to the northern Ghana. Some will give cow, a number of cows, and
Hmm.
some also will give a list of items like things that are within the culture. So, for instance, those items, as I said, are given to the parents. They must be received by the parents,
Hmm.
and then yeah, the initial thing is those lists the list has to be given out by your parent, and those items, when they are going to be handed over to you, the parents, both parents might be around. So I must confirm that with my Christian upbringing, it has actually changed so many things for us, because when I was in courtship with my husband, I didn't hide anything of this from him. So he knew my background. Like, I'm kind of fatherless. Like, the
Hmm.
man with my stepdad is not my real dad, those stuff. Yeah. So he knew. And but it got to a point, our pastor who was really counseling us actually got stuck along the line, and he was like, nope, if this is part of your history, then we have to go back and work on that. And going back here means, like, he could see bitterness in me. He could see bitterness, deep bitterness. I mean, harbored in my heart so much about my dad that I wouldn't even like him to hear about my marriage. That was one thing. So it got to a time this pastor knew that no, I had to go through some level of counseling. So we stopped courting. I mean, counseling that we were going as couples, like we were going regularly. We stopped that, and I started a different counseling session for forgiveness. So I had a counseling session for 6 months to learn about how we have to go through forgiveness and forgive those who have hurt us so much, and to
Hmm.
just take good care of ourselves and forgive everything around so that we can move forward. It wasn't easy. It wasn't that easy, but thank God I am free now, because it's true that I remember we had forgiveness class with Karen. Did you take that class at uh, SIT?
Yeah, yeah, I took that. Yeah, I did.
Exactly. Yeah. So I went through a 6 month forgiveness in the biblical, I mean, in the Christian way, and it got to that point that I had to look for my dad. That's
Hmm.
how bad it was for me that time. After forgiving, you have to prove. After saying that you have forgiven him, now you need to prove that that is real. So I had to look for my dad. Looking for my dad, I passed through some of my uncles and my aunties. He being off the scene doesn't mean that I was disconnected from my father's side. I still had my aunties and co-communicating with them along the line. Even though I wasn't embraced by my dad, actually that was something very different. So they, through my aunties and my uncles, they led me to know where my dad was, and I happened to meet my dad. And interestingly, when I met my dad, it was so easy for me, because I went that day, I could remember, with my husband to be. At the point, he was very clear. And to cut the long story short, he was very clear that um, he wouldn't like to be the one to receive my dowry, because ideally the concept behind that is it's a thanksgiving to the man who has what looked after a child
Mm.
or after a family. But he was very submissive in the way that he said it, that he didn't do that. He didn't perform any responsibility. He didn't even know how I grew up or what happened all these years, because I was 28 years when he saw me. He didn't even know I was the one. So that was how far we went. And he told me in front of my husband that he wouldn't like to have that type of dowry, the fact that he didn't perform his duty, but not to leave me fatherless again. He would let his younger brother accompany me to my wedding, because when you receive the dowry, then the next step is you have to lead your daughter to the wedding and hand over your daughter to the man. So he actually assigned his youngest brother, who is my uncle, and it was the younger brother who he introduced to me that this is your father. That was what he said. This is your father, and he will take care of you in this journey. And indeed, my uncle was there for me in everything. So I
Uh,
actually, yeah. So that is how.
what about your stepfather, though? I mean,
Oh no! So my stepdad is still there. He's still our father, but because I have two siblings, but culturally, because he wasn't the one who gave birth to me, ideally, if he should perform that duty, it would be an insult for me. That's
uh,
how bad. Yeah, culturally, if my dad should be, let's say if he should be dead, then that my stepdad could have performed that duty on his behalf, because he wasn't alive. But my dad is still alive today. So um
now, was there any reconciliation or uh,
reconciliation between my dad and my mom.
or between you and your father? And
Yeah. That reconciliation was through the forgiveness process that I went through. And I have to show that I have forgiven him, because at that point it was about me. So
mm,
if according to our pastor, it is I have to take the step, because he knows already that he has not done well. And he actually encouraged me to take the step to visit him and just share this news with him and see how he will react. And it was really, and I was prepared for anything anyway, that I would be rejected a second time or whatever. But I was really much prepared that even if he was going to do that again, that could be another step I will say that I have taken. Yeah. But yeah, we reconciled and we went back and forth. Like that was how come he was very much ready to let go his responsibility as a father to the younger brother. So kind of, um, what's the word we use? He actually sold his birthright to the younger brother. That is it.
mhm.
Yes. So up to date, the younger brother is the one that I call my father. And if I
Mm.
should discuss anything about father and daughter issue, he's the one I head towards first. Yeah. And if he will send that issue to him, that's it. If he, yeah. So that is how culturally it operates. Yeah. But I still have a very good relationship with my dad. Yeah. We talk. Yeah. But it's only that I don't have a story about him. I have nothing to say about him. I haven't anything to remember at the age of 8. So it's just that type of distance relationship. But the good thing is I have forgiven him. He knows I've forgiven him. He talks to me. I talk to him. But yeah, I just don't have any story about him, like how I grew up with my mom.
You know, it's really fascinating because we have kind of a parallel journey to some degree in my mind because um, my father did not acknowledge my disability, which is Usher syndrome type 2A. And my brother has the same disease as well.
I remember you
And
telling me that.
so
So your
he did
brother
not
too is blind.
acknowledge, he does
Mhm.
not ask, even to this day, he doesn't ask about my eyesight, my hearing. Um, he does not acknowledge the disability at all. And when my brother was diagnosed at 16, he did not handle it well.
Mm.
And what I think I find really fascinating is that class that we took together, the forgiveness,
Mm-hmm.
that was part of my process as well, was forgiving my father for not acknowledging my disabilities.
Mm-hmm.
And also, he really wasn't a part of my life. I mean, he was there. Um, I would see him, but there was always a disconnect and kind of a wall between us to some degree, because he wouldn't really. I don't know how to describe it. I mean, he there was there was just distance,
Mm-hmm.
and he was not. He was very detached as a father. Uh, but And that was difficult in dealing with this disability, because it was, when I was in denial about it, it didn't help that he was in denial as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I really, it's amazing that we both had a similar connection through that, that class. But let's go back. I want to ask you something, because in terms of disability and sexuality, in our culture here in the United States, there's still, a lot of people just think of, people that have disabilities, they don't have sex, they don't, a lot of people, they don't have children. I mean, there's a stigma in relation to the disability and sexuality. And I don't know if you're familiar with the organization Sins Invalid. They explore disability and sexuality in amazing ways. And I'm just I wanted to ask you, like, how did you discover your sexuality? And like, when you were, I mean, how did that come about? And was there a point in which you were like, you weren't sure if you were, you were going to find love, or how was that experience?
Oh, interestingly, I will say that I have been brought up with that ideology that I will not find any love in any man, which, yeah, because my mom always tells me those days, like, one thing that I want you to know is there is no true love in a man. Yes, there is no true love in a man. So if anybody will love you at all, that should be your father first. That
Mm.
is stuff. Oh yes, she kept on reminding me about that. Like, I want you to know that as you are growing up, just bear it in mind. There's no true love in man. No man
So
will love you. Yeah.
really, so that
Yes.
was that just so I understand, is that like a culture thing, or a cultural thing, or is it in relation to disability?
Oh no, it's in relation to disability, because
Okay.
it's because of your disability. That's why your own father couldn't even, I mean, stay with you. That's my mom's point. If
Mm,
because of my own dad, if because of my own disability, my own dad had to run away from me,
mm.
then who will be the next man to love you on this earth? So I actually grew up with that mentality.
Now, was your mother perpetuating that mentality?
Oh, yes. Like, she wanted me to know that there is no true love in a man. You can only find the true love in Christ. That is it, in Jesus Christ.
Uh,
Yes, if you depend on a man, you will flop. You will lose it. You will just be, I mean, in a mess, in a way that you will be disappointed. That is it. A man will leave you on the way when you trust a man to that extent that that man is your everything. Because when my mom got married, I mean, she, according to her, she was, I mean, in cloud nine, as you can think about, like, yes, like that is the best thing that happened to her, sorry. And that was the life that she had, like, with the husband, perfect, I mean, married, they were married at home, like, culturally, and came to the city, and they were working, so she just wanted me to know that, uh, have it at the back of your mind that it can never work with a man. If you think that there is a true love in a man in terms of marriage, it will not work. Just trust in God and just have education. Then you can have your food on your table. Then you can survive. So I would say that I have actually grown up with that ideology. until I met this guy. And if I tell you, my husband should be the next person you should interview, because he actually didn't have it easy. He had it so tough that I have to really believe that this is a true love. And as I'm telling you up to now, we still go back and forth about that conversation, because there are so many things that I can connect to and say that, oh, mommy said it. There is no true love in a man, right? So, so thinking about this in relation to sexuality, I would say that because I was also brought up in a Christian way. For instance, in my culture, you will not know a man or have sex before marriage and all those stuff. It was something that I grew up with. So at the age of that 28, I didn't actually know any man. And that wasn't anything surprising in our Christian religion or Christian uh, 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 bringing. Like, yeah, that is one piece of it. So as I was growing up, I knew my life will not revolve around a man, around sex, around issues concerning love. I have a lot of boyfriends, like everybody in my class. We were very close. Some will come to our house, we will cook together, but I look at them as my brothers and they look at me as my wife, as their sister. That was how best my relationship with men or boys were during that time. Yes, when I got uh, how do I put it, to start falling in love and also to even think about marriage, it wasn't something that I went into without that thing ringing in my mind. To be frank, I must be frank that it's still something that I still revolve around. And and my husband knows very well that I always revolve around it with the fact that if if something happens and something strikes and there is any disappointment, I will never be. That is one thing, because it's like I'm well armed, kind of very much ready for anything, which is something that I always do with prayers. I always do with my biblical background or my Christian values, because it is very much certain that trust in a man and you will lose everything. But when you trust in God with all your heart, you will understand his ways, kind of as a way that I grew up. So for instance, and I will say that that is one thing that keeps us going in this our marriage, because people some people will call me and say, I let you are still in school. Why did you leave your husband behind? Why are you, I mean, yeah, because you're always going to school. And I'm like, we know what we are doing. My husband knows that he needs to allow this lady to just go to her school, because that is one piece of me that is on my priority list. And when he comes here, people don't know that he comes to America or he comes here and goes, because that is our own plan. Just, yeah, just as nobody knows what happens in anybody's marriage, we just understand that life must go on without you or with me. That is, yes. And it is something that I have really grown up with. And I am so much, uh, how do you call it, content in it. And he is, because for 17 years, this is our life.
Mhm.
And yes, and he knows what I value so much. He knows what I am up to. And I know what he's also about. And the fact that we have targets and we talk, we go back and forth and we have plans. That is it. The good thing is we set a target for ourselves. We have really hit that target, or we hit that target, sorry. And that is what, to have a child, or we will give birth to once. Like, that was one thing that I'm like, I know how disability is, and I'm already afraid of the pregnancy, or how pregnancy will be with my legs and things already. And those are some of the things we will discuss very thoroughly, like that we have those things listed in our diary that will give birth to once. And thank God I had twins, right? And that is another thing God did for us. I actually pray for it that when I go once, it's only once, but I want two of them. And everybody who knew me as best friend knew that I pray for those twins. But at the right time, God has taken one, or one has to go, and I'm left with the one right now. So um, sexuality and disability is a huge issue in some ways, but for me, this is personally that this is how I relate to it, because it is not something that I cherish so much. So for instance, I can't be here and say, oh, like how I know some ladies will be like, I need to have sex about this amount of time before I can survive. I know ladies like that. When I engage in those type of talking, they like, people can blow it out. Like, I can't stay without a man for 2 or 3 days. I'm like, there you are up to something. Then you will definitely. Yes, that is another thing. So in terms of, sexuality, it's another issue, a big topic on its own, how people even um, wonder if people with disabilities can have sex, as you said, can even have a pregnancy and can even have children. Yeah, it's a whole lot there, but ideally, I relate to it so differently. It's not part of the list on my priority list. Like, it's something that I deal with very, how much, if I want to give it a percentage, I think it's about 40% on my list, if I'm looking at it like that.
What is 40%?
If I should relate to sexuality, how
Mhm.
deep I consider that is like as part of my journey, or how strong it is in my upbringing, or yeah, it wasn't something.
Now, is your husband still in Ghana right now?
Yeah. He should have been here. Normally it is summer to October, November, then he's gone.
Okay,
But yeah, so he was here last year around this time. I mean, he was gone because when the winter is coming, then he goes. He
I
normally did,
see.
yeah. But this is how COVID made it this time.
Hmm. So, with COVID, when is your next plan to see him?
Oh, it depends upon how COVID releases us. So anytime, if the borders are really clear, like, and nothing is happening, nobody is really, and because of his job too, because of his job, he has to ask for permission and make sure that he's released from the office, and the number of days he has to be outside the country and all those stuff. So that's another thing that we take into consideration. So he has to combine all his annual leave. That is how we do it. He doesn't go on leave until, because he has to put all casual and annual all together to make it a little bit long for him at least to come here.
I see.
Mhm.
So I want to explore, because I remember when I met you, you had created, was it a school for people with disabilities? It was like, if I remember correctly, is that?
Yeah, so it's not a school yet, and I think maybe if you can even use your platform so that we look for funders, that would be a great opportunity. So yeah, after you SIT, I also won that Advancing Leaders Fellowship. So when I went back, I have founded my organization, Enlightening and Empowering People with Disabilities in Africa. So the biggest deal is, even though it is an advocacy organization, uh, we have been favored in a way that in the community, because people know my work, or the community know my work very well, they they just wanted us to have policy on the ground practically, because all my project work, all the things that I have been revolving around is how my disability has been intensified in the school system. As I was climbing the ladder in education, my disability has becoming more and more um, complicated. So my main focus is to make life easier for any child with any type of disability in Ghana. So in short, we have this vast land, 20 acres in the community. And it was sold to us very much moderately cheap because they wanted us to have this school built in the community. And that is where I have been for some years now. And I've never been able to dig any hole yet because the land is there. We did the registration. We went through all the processes, but funding or where to get that type of fund to really build this school, because I'm looking at this school as it is. I'm not actually carrying America or Europe to Ghana, but making it so much accessible, like how things are very much accessible here. For instance, when you go to the bathroom, you know how accessible I can just roll my wheelchair and enter the bathroom. It's not like that in Ghana. You will not go to any school without steps. You will climb about 3-4 steps before you enter a bathroom. And even the environment, the school environment is so. So I am considering this school to be a one-stop shop for all the disability groups, whether blind, deaf, or what. But it's not going to be only people with disabilities too. It will be mixed, like the mainstream, as we say, the mainstream school. But the priority will be any child in Ghana, any part of that child is in Ghana who is looking for a school to go should come to our school and have a place and do whatever course or program they want to do from beginning to the end. So my school hasn't yet been built. It is on paper. I have gotten people, sponsors, help to design it. They design it nicely. We actually started raising some fund here 2 years ago with my classmates. Like when I came, my classmates, some of them were very much moved to the vision or pulled to the vision so much that some of them helped to raise the fund, but it wasn't moving because we were all busy in school at the same time. And then the person who actually started the GoFundMe had traveled outside, and all of a sudden, maybe people saw him ahead that she was raising fund, and they attacked her account at a point because the target for this school was $100 million, $100,000, sorry, $100,000, and we started within $400. Then they attacked her account, her bank account, while she was outside the country and couldn't access the account anymore. Yeah, so that is one thing that I am seriously working on now and selling this project to people that know about me and how we have this land. And yeah, it isn't built. It is still in the process. When I have fun today, like somebody wants to just go to Ghana and dig the ground and just make this happen, I will be so glad. The next thing I will do is to hand over the drawings or the design, everything to the person, and they start digging the land. So it's not yet built, but it will be built. I strongly believe that that is one thing that will happen in the life of children with disabilities, because I'm not looking at it as a small school. I'm looking at it as an international school, which can even include the surrounding countries like Togo, Cote d'Ivoire, Burkina Faso, that we were all surrounded by, could also find a place for their children with disabilities in that school. So that's one thing.
What is the name of the school or program?
The name of can you say that again, please?
What are you calling this school? What is it? Do you have?
It's just an inclusive education environment. We call it Accessible School Environment Project. I actually have a video, or we have a video on that. I can send it to you.
Yes, please do, and I'll include it in the description of the podcast.
Yeah, I made a 2-minute video about it, and the project actually has the design and other things in it that my friends helped me here. We went to the TV station and captured that. It was fun. They were so helpful, Rebecca and Faith. Yeah. So I was,
And is there a website?
yeah, we have our website. Our website is www.eepdafrica.org. The name is Enlightening and Empowering People with Disabilities in Africa.
Okay.
So yeah, EEPD dot EEPDAfrica.org is our website.
Okay. Excellent. We'll mention that at the end as well. Um, so yeah, let's kind of go back and so the schooling, it's funny. I think about SIT and I remember the school, some parts of it were accessible,
Mm-hmm.
and others were not. And I remember that there was an issue that you were excluded from
Mm-hmm.
certain dorm rooms because they were inaccessible.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's funny because I remember thinking about that, and I remember dealing with some of my own accessibility issues at the time. And I think we had there was a class that was like disability and social justice.
Yeah. And we had a research. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I remember that was one of the issues is you would talk about the fact that many of the buildings on campus were not accessible.
Mm-hmm.
And um, and it was interesting, being at progressive school. And I think at the campus, I remember when we arrived there, we were dealing with so many issues. When we got there, they were closing the library.
Uh-huh.
They had closed they had basically a doctor's office on campus with a
Mm-hmm.
with a physician there, and
Yes.
they'd closed that. Um, and they closed the career center, and they had closed everything, and they did not let us know that they were doing this before we arrived. And so we were, like, what is going on here?
Mm-hmm.
And we were dealing with so much, and it was, I mean, we won't get into all the hypocrisies that were happening, but yeah, it was frustrating. And I just, I think about that, and now it's closed, right? The SIT Graduate Institute is
Yeah. Yeah.
now
Yeah. Nothing is happening on campus. Yeah.
right. Are you in Brattleboro or are you in Burlington?
I'm in Colchester.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
How far is that from Brattleboro?
Oh, about 3 to 4 hours. Yeah, it's a bit far.
Okay.
Yeah, we are far away. It's just
Wow.
15 minutes to Burlington because,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Um. So so what what are you doing now? So you're independent living specialist at Vermont Independent Living Center,
Yeah.
or Center for I know it's CIL, Center for Independent Living, correct?
Yeah. So this is
Yeah.
the Vermont Center for Independent Living.
Right, because the West Coast uses ILC, Independent Living Center, and the East Coast uses Center for Independent Living. Right.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, how is it working there, and that experience?
Well, I would say that, I was with VCIL for some time now, almost the 8 years that we were in SIT. I first started as an intern when I did my internship with them, and that was 2012. So I don't know whether I remember my position then. I was the policy intern for them. And that time, it was very interesting for me to be on top of um, their how do you call it, on top of this project going on that time when they were about to ratify the UN Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities. That was when America was struggling to ratify this convention. And I was assigned this role that I had to call the senators across the states, like all the 50 states. And I will call them and try to lobby them for them to vote for the bill, the convention, and those. It was fun, and I enjoyed it so much. And after that, I left I left like after, as you know, after SIT, I left, but I didn't actually leave. My spirit was still hovering around. So when I came back for the PhD, I just realized that I need to connect to an organization again with disability issues, like connect with organization working on issues again. And VCIL is in every town across the state. So I happened to join them again. For this time, I was accepted to be a board member. And that was how I revolved. So I served on the board for almost these 4 years from the time I came for my PhD. So what do you expect to happen? So as I've done, I got this position to work as the independent living coordinator. And I let me say, I wear about 3 hats in this position because I work as the COVID RISE project. How do you call it? I work with other team members on that. And then I work as the youth transition counselor.
Okay.
And then the third one is I wear the hat of the racial justice and intersectionality coordinator. So
Say that last one. I missed that.
racial justice and
Okay.
intersectionality coordinator. So anything around those three. But what is significant among the three is the youth transition program, which is I'm working on seriously now, because I have to work across the state with all the youth transition counselors and make sure that I have access through the school system, through the IEP and 504 coordinators, and have access to the children to lead them into self-advocacy. So I'm
Those
leading
that are
this
listening and watching, IEP stands for Independent Education Plan, correct?
plan. Yeah. Sorry,
That's okay.
I just feel it's just an American term that everybody knows. Sorry, I'm so sorry for
No,
that.
no, it's okay. Acronyms. It's funny because in the independent living movement, there are so many
Oh
acronyms.
yes,
It's a little obnoxious, but
I tell you.
uh,
I, I continue asking them most of like the meaning of some of them. Yeah, so you see, I just also committed the same crime. Yeah, so
it's okay. It's okay. I mean, um, eh, yeah. It just I wanted to make sure everybody understood what independent IEP was. Independent educational plan or education plan.
education plan.
Yeah. So
Yeah, yeah. So that is what I do virtually, and I have access. I have to get access through the youth transition counselors in the state who will connect me through the school to have these students in workshops. So I do workshops for them to build their self-confidence and make sure they have uh, advocacy skills and strategies, especially to explore or to be well armed with these things as they are transitioning from high school or middle school to high school or high school to college, and even to work, to employment. So there are so many workshops revolving around their life skills, their ways of going for interview, like things around how to ask for accommodation when you are in the college and all those stuff. You know how at times when they leave high school, they feel that disability has left them behind, kind of like
mhm.
they don't own their disability, or they don't feel to be part of this group anymore, because during those ages that they were pulled out from class by the IEP coordinators and the parent, it's over. And as they are free on college campus, they don't want to ask for accommodation, and they want to just be themselves. So that is what I do to just train them to know that you also have these options, that you can explore these other alternatives when you get to next level. As you transition, then you have this your power to do this and all those stuff in terms of self-advocacy. So that is basically what I do presently with these children.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, how are you feeling about, our current situation? Like I was a disability community advocate at a Northern California independent living center, and now I'm at the same independent living center, but I'm a uh, emergency preparedness coordinator for older adults and people with disabilities.
Hmm.
And I hear every day, because of the isolation due to COVID-19, the political climate, climate collapse, everything else that we are collectively experiencing, I hear a lot of isolation, misery,
Mm-hmm.
uh, due to poverty,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and lack of access to healthcare, and
Mm-hmm.
just fear. And I hear it every single day, and I'm assuming that you are hearing it as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's a general issue across the nation because of so many things happening at the same time. One thing for sure that I know since I took this position, especially about the youth in my program, for instance, I have let me talk about my program a little. Is most of the students are no more in school. Some are being homeschooled. When I say student, I student with disabilities. So it's just very hard for them to get access to these children just because of the fear around, the fear of unknown that nobody knows. And the parents are very much protective of their children because if somebody has a pre-existing condition already, you don't expect that person to allow the child to the school system. So there are so many things that are happening around this COVID and the political era. And I will say that yes, there is fear everywhere. But I think on the flip side, there is another thing that we are not really looking at very critically, or we are not really dwelling on. The piece that I am so much trying to make good use of is everything is becoming virtual now. Everything is becoming virtual. And just try to believe that this is how the new normal in quotes is going to be. And if it is that, as I said from the beginning, that as you know me, I always make sure that I find something positive in the negative thing. If that is what we have to do now, what do we need to do to get something positive to this fear of unknown or this era of fear? As everybody knows that the system is really much loaded on us, and there are so many systemic issues that we can't talk about because aligning disability with any other marginalized group is a huge hard nut to crack. That is another thing. But the question I always ask myself is, what will you do positively to make this thing work out for somebody close to you? So for instance, in this my program, I'm trying to have these children to create an atmosphere for them not to have the fear. That is one thing. And just to also have the feeling that they have somebody to talk to, especially as we have every program on Zoom. I am trying to have this program really structured in a way that I can even meet them on weekends or any odd time that they will not be, uh, how do you call it? They will not feel alone, kind of like they will not feel dejected or making making life for themselves a bit, let me say, hard. Even though everybody is feeling it, I still want us to have some one day or two times in a week to have some fun and discuss issues affecting us and find a way to see how do we solve it in terms of our own needs, like our immediate basic needs as people with disabilities, because some of them critically, when as you work with the old age, I work with the youth, because some of them you could see that it's just somebody that they want to talk with. It's just somebody that they want so that the person will just listen to them. It's just somebody that they just want to hear a word from, because everything is closed, is shattered. Every dream of them, they can't go out. So a significant program I had on Halloween Day for them was a fun thing that I did across the state for them, and it was virtual, which they didn't even, I mean, know about. All of a sudden, these flyers were out, and it was fun to know that somebody is there planning to have this thing with them, even though it's not something that they used to have virtually before. But I knew my people will not go out like this time of COVID. So strategically, I'm looking at it that that is where we have to explore in every situation to see how do we really work this out for us, because nobody will do it for us. That's one thing. Now, how do we really blend this environment to really make our work also very much enjoyable and also very much easier for us, so that when we get back to our normal routines, these children will be in the same page with us, or these people. For instance, as you work with the old age, I will encourage you also to make some things available online for them. Even if it is a singing time you have with the old age, playing guitar with them. I know you sing for them or something like that. Somebody, yeah, somebody in that crowd will have some fun time one day, and say the fact that they will have a program lineup every Friday, they know, or every Saturday, they know at 7 o'clock, they will go to their laptops and just watch themselves and just talk and just have that dialogue and just have that fun time. It's a process. So that is how I'm looking at it in this era, because I just realized that nothing will happen to us if I personally don't do anything about it.
Yeah. You know, I'm glad you mentioned that, because what I'm hearing when I'm on the phone, talking with older adults and people with disabilities that are isolated due to COVID-19, is that there is a need for expression, a need to share what is alive within them.
Mm-hmm.
And because I feel like a lot of people don't have anyone. They don't have family. They don't have friends. And in many cases, they don't even have access to assistive technology or even computers because of um, their income
Mm-hmm.
and or access to the internet, because they don't have the money.
Mm-hmm.
Social Security, is not SSI is not enough.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, but I appreciate you bringing that up. The opportunity to kind of just talk and
Mm-hmm.
to sing and to have some self-expression.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Um, so I don't know what your time is. What I usually do, just so you're aware, is when you've had enough, I just, I tell everybody, just say, I'm done. I have to go. So I don't know what your time is. I didn't mention that at the beginning, and I apologize. So
Oh, okay. It's 8:59, 55 in my watch now. I think we have spent more than 1 hour.
that's
Yeah.
okay. I mean, there's no time limit, but I do want to just kind of cover, your work. What was your dissertation on for your PhD?
What is my what?
Your dissertation for that.
Oh, my PhD. I work around the inclusive education policy in Ghana, but I actually did so many papers in my dissertation. Some are published, and I did another piece is I tackle, so this is how I did it. I did it in two ways. One, I worked with the layman, or let me say the people with disabilities on the ground, on the grassroots level. And then the next level is I work with the policymakers to see how the policy is aligning with the practice that they talk about, using all the disability um, laws and regulations or conventions, in especially relating to education. So in short, it's about how inclusive education policy is implemented in Ghana.
I
And
see.
yes, that is how uh, big the project was for me, because I didn't want to finish this project and still feel like I am still left with a group of people that I needed to interview. Yeah, so I actually went to Ghana and interviewed the policymakers from the minister's level to the teacher who is in the classroom, making sure that the policy, inclusive education policy, is implemented. Then I also did the same thing with all the different disability groups that we have. And yeah, so it was fun. It was really fun. It took me so many years to analyze my data. Yeah, but at the end of the day, I made it. And one piece of that paper is published, and the second one is on the way. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So, what did you see the documentary Crip Camp?
No. When?
It's on Netflix, and
Oh, okay.
yeah, and it's a documentary, and I don't want to, just because I think if you, do you have access to Netflix?
Oh yeah, but I don't watch most films on Netflix. My best films are on Pureflix, so I watch Pureflix a lot. That's one thing.
What do you
Yeah,
watch?
I watch Pureflix.
What is that?
You don't know Pureflix?
Maybe I'm not hearing it. Is it a,
Pureflix, Pureflix.
okay. So what are you watching?
I watch everything. I mean, everything with, and they have a different categories for teen. You know, I have a teen with me now, so things that he selects around there we watch. They have things around um I mean, good morals. They teach a lot of lessons, and basically it's a movie that when I'm watching with my son, both of us feel very comfortable and we can discuss. Yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm surprised you don't know about Pureflix.
Yeah, I mean, I've just been so busy,
I
and
know it.
yeah, I mean, one of the things that I have to do is we have in California, because of the wildfires, we have public safety power shutoffs.
Oh yeah.
So a lot of older adults and people with disabilities have life-sustaining medical devices.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so these power shutoffs put people's lives at risk. And
Mm.
so what we're doing at my independent living center is deploying backup batteries, or offering hotel stays to those that have life-sustaining medical devices like oxygen concentrators, CPAP machines, nebulizers, ventilators,
Wow.
power wheelchairs, and so on.
Yeah, I
So,
can imagine.
so we've had 5 public safety power shutoffs this since September.
Mm-mm.
So it's been time consuming, to say the least. And so
Yeah.
I have not been able to read very much or watch anything or really do anything.
Mm.
So it's been
No.
yeah, it's been stressful and yeah, but and then in the middle of everything, I'm going through the final stages of losing my eyesight. Like, I'm really getting to the point where I just have to let go of the remaining eyesight that I have, because it's so distorted and just visual noise that's not useful.
Mm,
So that's why I wear these sunglasses, is because it stops the glare from the lights in the computer,
mm-hmm,
because it's almost like visual overload.
mm-hmm.
So
Remember those days. I remember those days when you were saying you were losing your eyesight. Yeah, I can imagine when I was in Ghana and you told me that yes, you have actually you are now blind, and I'm like, that's another step. It's just a process. We will move forward together. So I know, and um, uh, we are strong enough, and we can just move forward despite all odds. That is one thing I know for you also from campus. We were going back and forth all this time, but we made it. We made it, and here we are today.
yeah, it's been
You know what? One thing that I will have to ask you,
uh-huh.
like that now I am going to interview you.
Okay, go ahead.
I am just so happy for you that you are married. You are married, and how did you fall in love? Because that is another question that uh, when I see your pictures and you glowing very much, brightening, and I just know that, oh, this my brother is in a safe hand. And I'm so happy for you. But the question is, where did you meet your woman?
Well, what happened was, for a long time after I departed SIT Graduate Institute, I went through a period of I isolated myself because my eyesight was getting worse and my hearing was as well. And I didn't know what I wanted to do because I was, what happened at SIT. There was a lot of turmoil and conflict, and then I went to and lived in Oaxaca, Mexico, with
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
work on my thesis, and I was working with Gustavo Esteva, whom you know.
Gustav, yeah, Gustav. Oh my God, it's been a long time. I have to get in touch with him.
Yeah, if you look back, the first three episodes
Mm.
are a conversation with Gustavo and I.
Oh, is that so?
Yes, yeah. So if you go to the YouTube channel or the Apple podcast and the first three episodes are me kind of trying to work out how to do this podcast because, in the old days, I was an actor and I did my undergraduate degree at Cal Arts in acting, and then I got my master's degree in directing at UCLA.
Oh.
And so that was my background. And so that's one of the things that I did in my experience with disability is I did not have someone with a disability to kind
Mm-hmm.
of guide me through it. So what
Through it.
I did was I would start doing something like acting, and then I would stop because of a change in my eyesight. And then I would do the same thing with directing. I'd be like, oh, I can do this. And then I'd stop. And then I went on the video, and I had to stop doing that. Instead of, I didn't have somebody telling me, well, let me go back. What I heard often was do it for as long as you can. What I
Mm.
needed to hear was you can still do it. You're just going to have to do it differently
Yeah.
and adapt. And
Yeah.
that's what I needed to hear. And maybe people did tell me, I don't know. Maybe I was in denial. Maybe I didn't hear it.
Mm-hmm.
I have no
Mm-hmm.
fucking idea. But
Did you use the F word?
yeah, I do swear. I've been trying to, because you haven't sworn, I've been trying to respect that, but I have to be truthful. And so, um,
Brian just used the F word. Oh my
I'm
God.
sorry. I'm sorry. I apologize. I apologize. If you look at my other podcasts, I swear a lot because the truth is, I
Mm.
want to be a compassionate, loving, and empathetic human being,
Yeah.
speak nonviolently, but I also have to be honest. And part of that is that I do curse.
Yeah.
And
You blow your feelings.
I need to express myself, and sometimes, and I feel if it's a long story, but I censor myself too much. And what I'm trying to do with the podcast is to be as truthful as possible. And the truth is messy. And this is my Gandhian experiment in truth. And so my point is that I was trying to say is that I isolated myself for a long time because of my disability. And I felt that I was not in a place for a relationship or even considering marriage. And I didn't date or do anything after SIT Graduate Institute at all. And then what happened was I started to realize when in 2017, my eyesight was getting much worse. And I made a decision at that point that I needed to start living because I was essentially dying in life. I was not living well. And I was isolated. I was alone. And so what happened was I ended up working at an independent living center in California, in Northern California. And through that, I met someone and we worked together on a video project, and we were working late, and his wife came to pick him up. And I was very frustrated because we were supposed to work on this video project and it was taking a long time. And I won't go into the details of it, but basically I was very frustrated and I made a joke. I was like, I was looking for a female audio connection. And I was like, I need a female XLR cable. And then I just kind of sighed and went, I need a female. And she heard that, the wife of my coworker, and she kind of kept that in her mind, and she introduced my now wife to me. And so this is kind of the going on the date with my wife, now wife. That was my way of loving beyond my fears. Was I was scared and I was like, I don't feel like I'm ready for a relationship, but I felt that I had to live and love.
That's so sweet. At least that lady knows your need, and immediately try to feed into that for you to bring somebody on board. Well, I hope she's taking good care of you for me.
She is. And if you look at episode 4, that is her. It says Rachel James Moon.
You will need to send me the link, okay? When we are
I will.
So that I can watch.
So one thing before we depart, I just kind of want to discuss a little bit what's going on with your racial justice work, because I know since George Floyd, we kind of, as an independent living center, started to really have serious discussions about racial justice. What are you doing in Vermont?
Oh my God, that's a big one there. We are doing a lot around. For instance, Vermont is purely white. You and I know Vermont is purely white, and Vermont pretends a lot in these issues of racism. They always have the answer to every question about racism. So that is the biggest one now. But the good thing happening to me at VCIL is everybody is open-minded, and they are working around how people, especially within, presently we are working around how we can empower the people within the organization first, because charity begins at home. Because things that are happening, it's like people are at the defensive point already. So we have to be very tactical and strategic in a way to not pour oil into the fire, kind of. So we are trying to educate ourselves as part of our training sections in the work within the VCIL ourselves. Then the second thing that on the board is trying to network with like-minded organizations, making sure that things are work alongside with other organizations. So, for instance, we have the Equity and Justice Coalition group, which is happening every single 2 weeks. Like we have these meetings here and there, and the topics around keeping the police in the schools or removing them has been one of the biggest topic of late, because in Vermont that happens. It's in the system for us, and some are for it and some are against it. But the issue is we have to look at it from the policy perspective and how deep or how cancerous this has been for so many years, and how systemic it is, and how ready are we to change it. So dialogue is in the process now. There are so many things happening within some organizations. I have been part of some boards also. So it's so interesting that uh, some people know that there should be a change. And the reality is they don't know how that change will be. That's another starting point. For instance, I currently join two boards as a board member. They were very much open-minded, and they were very clear with me that yes, we brought you on board because you have trained some people, you have done some culturally responsive trainings for people, or cultural competency training, or racial justice training for people we have heard. And we know you have taught a course. I taught race and racism course in UVM during my PhD. And those are some of the things people will link up to you, that we brought you on board because we know your capacity of this, and we know how best you can help us. So what do you think we have to know or we have to do? Because we are ready as a board to really be very much inclusive and diverse as we talk about. And some of them were very much clear to let me know, even it doesn't reflect in our mission as a vision. So that is the point that I'm starting with some of them. That is a voluntary work anyway. As a board, there we think about how do we restructure some of the things that we have been living with for a long time that we don't even know, or we know but we don't know who will help us change it. So I think it's just very hard in Vermont because, for instance, my director is so ready for any change and is so ready to make changes. But the question is, the next level is, do we really know how everybody that we are collaborating with as partners, or as how do you call it, like-minded organization? Do we know how, to what extent they want to go in this? Because people are so much afraid, like they don't know how far this is going to take them. But the reality is the minority is becoming the majority. So when they understand it from that perspective, they are ready to make the changes. Yeah.
Well, thank you for doing that work, because it's needed everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's so much work that needs to be done,
Oh
and
yeah.
um, thank you. So before we depart, could you please just kind of give us an overview of where we can find your work, your website one more time? And if you could spell out your website phonetically, at least the first acronym part of it, that would be helpful.
Mm.
And
Okay. Thank you so much, Brian. It's been a very nice evening we had together. I really miss your voice in my ears anyway, but thank God I have you, yeah, here over almost 8 years.
even when I swear, are you okay? I apologize that I
Oh
swore.
yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay. I know I'm in America. Like, yeah, so there are so many things that happen unexpectedly.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
so My work around my organization is enlightening and empowering people with disabilities in Africa. And our website is www.e for egg, E for egg, P for Paul, D for dog, A for apple, F for Frank, R for room, I for ice cream, C for cat, A for apple, .org. O-R-G. Yeah, that is EEPDAfrica.org. And
Excellent. Thank you so much.
thank you.
And so when you're writing a book,
Yes.
now what I'd like to do when your book is available,
Yes.
I would like to interview you again
Mm-hmm.
to discuss your book. So please.
Exactly. Maybe it will be one, that will be another avenue because my main reason of actually writing this book is to raise fund with it. Because if I'm not able to raise fund or get the funding from the philanthropist or whatever that I was thinking about, I have this target that I have to just write a book and publish it and raise fund, invite people to what, be part of it and donate. So yes, I will come back and we will project this book, and then we will really find a way to raise fund or launch it. So you should be getting ready for my launching of this book, and that should be the next step that we will meet again.
So when are you thinking it's going to be finished?
I'm finishing the writing. I tax myself at the end of this year, which is in December.
Oh,
Then
really? So you're going to be done next month?
yeah, that's how far I'm really taxing myself because I have a plan down, and this year I have to do this year I have to do this. That's how bad it is. Like I'm actually working on it that way that uh by next year this book must be launched. Yes. So I am almost finishing, and I'll finish this December. Then I'll have editing, and then from editing, please, peace, then we move to what? The publishing. Yeah, so by next year, be expecting my book launch. I promise you. Because that school has to be built by 2022. That's my
Okay.
biggest, yeah, task. I give myself 2 years to find a way to raise fund. That's all. Yeah. So that is what COVID has actually brought to me because I was so much idle, idle. So the word idle is underestimated. From February, I had nothing to do, like, especially after finishing my PhD, I was basically doing nothing. And that was where I got my strength. And I started writing immediately. Yeah. So be expecting more to come.
Wonderful. I am so happy that we reconnected, and it's lovely to hear your voice. Is there
Mhm.
anything you want to tell to those that, uh, well, like Ed Roberts said, disability is an equal opportunity club. Anybody can become a member at any time.
Mhm.
So everybody has the possibility of experiencing a disability, either temporarily or permanently.
Yeah.
What do you want to say to those that either have a disability or may experience a disability in the future?
So one significant thing that I know keeps me going is I have owned my disability. I have owned it because it's my identity. As I always tell people, if you lose your identity, you lose your power. So those who are having any type of disability, I will urge them and encourage them to own your disability very proudly. It's our pride. And that is one significant thing. The moment you come out from that shadow or that hallucination or whatever mirage it is for you, and you think that this is something that you will get uh, over by accepting every garbage people put on you, then you are going to be in a mess. The moment you own it, you realize that every garbage thrown onto you is nothing anymore, because you know your value, you know who you are, and you know what you are capable of doing. By looking at yourself, you don't dwell on the disability, but you dwell on your strength. For those who are joining us, I say come on board with courage. With courage, because it needs courage to move one step ahead. Other than that, you will sink. So in short, own your disability and be proud of it. And there you will get your power to do anything that you want to do on this earth. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I love you very, very much, and it is lovely to hear your voice. And thank you for being here with me. This
Thank
is
you.
Sefakor Miranda Grateful Komabu, PhD,
Yes.
and um, thank you so much. And let's reconnect soon. And please stay safe and be and stay healthy.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you so much. You know what I have to do next time? I turned off the heater
Oh,
because I didn't want the noise to be in the background. And
oh.
it is so cold. It's been cold for the last hour. And I'm like, ah. So if I'm a little off, that's why. So I apologize for that, because I've been
Most
trying to
probably.
cope with
Yeah.
being very, very cold right now. So thank you, everybody, for bearing with me and my discombobulation. But
Okay, bye-bye.
Sefakor, I love you. And
Love you too,
what I'm
guys.
going to do is we're going to have an awkward ending,
Mhm.
and so I can stop the recording. So I love you. Stay safe and healthy. Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
bye.
Awkward ending now. Oops, that didn't work. See, that this is why it's awkward, because hold on one moment. It's not allowing me to stop it.